the editor never gets the. I'm talking to Arty about editing because Arty is very kindly. Is it okay to say this, Arty?
Of course, yeah.
Oh yeah. Arty has very kindly started to edit all the ums and ahs out of my videos, and I've done. It's gone very dark there, Arty, just for some reason. Oh, there you go. He does such an amazing job. It just kind of flows. He did the first one on Heather Brunskill Evans last week, and he's doing one I did on prisons with Kate Coleman this week, and it's really powerful stuff. I can't wait to show it to you.
It's gonna be crazy, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I hear them. Helen, what's going on your side? Is that
the house opposite is getting scaffolding put up. I think they're having a loft extension, and so there's quite a lot of banging and shouting. But there's not much we can do.
Yeah, we're gonna have to live with that this week. How have you been this week?
Oh, angry this week actually.
Really? That's not like you.
This idea, I think calling bereaved mothers bullies and scum was, I think, one of the lowest points I think we've ever got to in this sort of fight.
I'm not familiar with this story. I'm only half familiar with it. What happened?
So the charity for bereaved parents. It was about 2 weeks ago. They put out a tweet that talked, and it was meant to support the partners of women who were bereaved, because they were saying the focus is always on the mother, but there's the partners also need support. Let's remember them. But instead of calling the women mothers, they used the term birthing parent, and it's such a dehumanizing way to talk about women who have lost children, because in some circumstances, it's the only connection that they'll ever have with this child is that they were the child's mother. That's all they have left. That's all they were ever going to have. And to try and take that away was just appalling. So people made this point, and a couple of days after it was discovered and people made a fuss, they did say, we should have used the term mothers. I think that's fair. However, then there were quite a lot of I'm not even going to call them trans activists anymore. I'm going to say anti-women activists. Quite a lot of anti-women activists that jumped on the thread, notably one Freddie McConnell, who I believe is that trans man who basically became famous for having a baby.
Yeah, which is the only reason trans men ever get famous.
Yes, but and who also notably went to court to try and get themselves referred to as officially as the child's father instead of mother. Jumped in and said, "Don't bow down to these bullies." And these bullies that Freddie McConnell is talking about are bereaved mothers who have lost their children, who simply want the recognition that they were mothers. And it was just the most incredible narcissistic thing I've ever seen. I saw people calling them scum, like bullies. I just saw like the very worst of human nature. It felt to me over the weekend. It was cruel. Cruel is the word. It's all I can think of.
And don't forget they were calling them transphobes too. I mean, we're so used to seeing that word thrown around, but let's just take a minute to step back and pretend we're aliens from another planet observing, like anthropologists. How insane is it that they're now tagging bereaved mothers who would just like to be called mothers as transphobic, as hateful of trans people? Can we just stop for a minute and recognize how off the rails that word has gone? Grieving parents of dead children. Like, I can't.
I can't. No, I couldn't. I honestly, it's as low as I've ever seen the movement sink. Yeah. Really, quite honestly, after this, I feel, these words are like, and especially the word mother. There is that sacred oldest time bond, isn't there? That clearly people want to try and break. They want to try and get rid of it, pretend that this doesn't exist.
It's anything biology.
It's real mother hatred. Real mother hatred. The fact that women are the ones that give birth, have this sort of sacred bond. It's very clear that this, underlying it all, that's there. But in the name of trans inclusivity, it was just dreadful.
I feel like we're always on the back foot with this stuff. We are constantly defending ourselves from accusations of transphobia and so on, and we really have to take the front foot now. I often say to people, if you're ever at a meeting or you see it in an email or anything like that, if you see the word cis, then stop the person and say, I find that word offensive. Because I'm so sick of this. I mean, basically, these are Americanized, fashionable idiots who are kind of marching along with a philosophy that they don't understand, that they can't explain. Like I wrote this week about John Ronson's inability to answer very simple questions, like can a man with a penis be a lesbian? Refuses to answer. And I just think we've really got to start, we've really got to start undoing the damage that's been done to the language.
I'm taking it back. I've changed my Twitter bio to Helen Staniland, and I never change anything because I've never, because I dislike change. I never change anything. I haven't changed my picture. I haven't changed my name, but I have now changed it to Helen Staniland, woman and mother. Those are my words. You can't fucking have them.
Yeah.
Well, Jane Claire Jones made that excellent point that, like, if this Freddie McConnell person is so, they find it so important to call themselves a father, and how come they can't recognize how important it is that women call themselves mother? The hypocrisy and the flaming narcissism.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
The narcissism. It is a movement drunk on narcissism. It was very clear this weekend. Very clear.
But also, we got to remember how powerful narcissism is as a way of getting things done. If you look at Trump is the ultimate narcissist, and his kind of tactics are exactly the same as these people. It's always attack, never answer questions, undermine the person by trying to find something they've done in the past that can be used against them. The thing they cannot do, though, is talk about it, because if you got, say, like that guy who always talks, or sorry, that trans-identified male, Kirsty, who recently left Twitter. I got a collection of his tweets, and they're all about marking his territory in toilets. Her territory, by pissing on the seats and stuff like this.
Well, that's really interesting, because I had a run-in with Kirsty just a couple of weeks ago, and it was just, we're coming in and you can't stop us. Me and my dick is coming into your toilets and you can't stop me. Yeah.
And I think Kirsty is very useful for that reason, because I think when you like again, when people say, oh, he's not representative or whatever, he's employed by the Independent newspaper to write pieces about big trans.
These are not fringe characters. While there's a nice, wonderful core, there is a small core of genuine sympathetic transsexuals, but the fringes are the vast majority.
Well, like someone like Aoife Martin in Ireland is a really good example of someone who polices their friends' Twitter to make sure that they're following the right people. I believe was one of those who was trying to. No, in fact, I know, because I saw the tweet, was one of the ones trying to decentralize women from the birthing process, and these are not strange, odd people who are on the outskirts of things. They're very influential, and they're getting things done, because the narcissist's playbook is of bullying, of policing.
Yes, you just shout and scream and make a huge fuss, and like Darvo, just say, look at these. I mean, I saw one today saying, look at these women trying to take our words away from us. Like,
it's so funny. What? It's so funny. Yeah.
And because most people are just reasonable, they're like, oh, what? let me just read that again and try and parse that, because I would not just lie. I mean, I wouldn't just sort of say things and lie about them in order to try and get my way, because it's unsustainable. And this is, when somebody then questions you, you can't actually answer. So when you come across the sort of character that does, like you were talking about Trump, who has sort of moved that Overton window about acceptability in how, in public office, for Christ's sake. But
Yes.
you are for a while sort of staggered as to how do you deal with this? Because it's coming across something that's sort of outside of the window of how you're meant to be able to sort of politically deal with something.
Yeah. It's really interesting. And I noticed like the LGB Alliance just opened a branch in Ireland. Now there's branches all over the world. It's great. And they have been just leapt on by trans rights activists. And they've barely tweeted. They've barely started operations, and the operations in question involve protecting lesbians from emotional and real coercion into accepting trans women as sexual partners, protecting the meaning of the word homosexuality, protecting the reality of that so that it doesn't become based on gender, which just erases homosexuality, and they're just launching themselves at them. And I think what it is to some extent is they're very, very frightened that someone like LGB Alliance will eventually get on the news and they'll have to go on and speak to them, because they know
LGB Alliance has the power, because that is a message that will destroy. If there's one message that is extremely powerful, it's that the T has nothing to do with the LG and the B. They have been riding on our coattails for so long. And it's true, because the LGBT Alliance mothership, so to speak, the UK LGBT Alliance, they have made so many strides, I know for a fact that people in Parliament in the UK are paying close attention to the LGBT Alliance. And they really are starting to completely replace Stonewall as the voice of reason of the LGBT, of LGBT rights. And that's just... Yeah.
Well, the best. Sorry, Helen, you go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think it's quite clear when Stonewall started tweeting about celebrating World Rugby whichever one, English rugby, I can't remember which it is, for inclusivity of male-born people in women's rugby. I think I've thought many times, surely the writing's on the wall now, but this one, come on. Surely the writing's on the wall now.
Let's give the stat again. A 30% greater increase, a 30% greater chance of women being seriously injured if they let male-bodied people play against them. A 30% greater chance. And that includes serious injury. And even we've seen the example of what happened in France. 2 rugby players recently died just from playing against other men, And Stonewall, the organization that's supposed to be protecting gay people in the UK, has kind of widened out their brief to endangering women. It's the most extraordinary thing.
That's an extraordinary peak transing thing too, because sports is the easiest way to get across to people. I got into I brought a gentleman friend home last year after a few cocktails at a bar. And we ended up getting into a screaming match about trans rights.
Really? Wow.
The thing that broke him, I kicked him out. No fun times for you.
I was hoping it would just evolve into a passionate embrace, but that's how it goes in films. That's how it goes, right?
That's how it goes when I watch like Douglas Murray YouTube videos, like fantasize. I get really angry at him, and then they get really hot. But anyways, my weird hate crush on Douglas Murray aside, I kicked him out. I was like, screw you. But it was the sports that really got to him. Yeah. I saw him at a bar a week later, and he's like, you know what? You're absolutely right. It was the sports thing. What they were doing to Martina Navratilova. He's like, it just doesn't make any sense. And he just that was the keystone that collapsed the whole thing. Yeah.
Well, did you say you can come back tonight then?
No. Like,
it was done by then.
But like,
missed your chance.
That's right.
The the Martina thing, that was like one of many moments where I thought, oh, it's okay, it's all over. You know, as soon as Martina stepped in, I thought she had a trans trainer. She's like an iconic lesbian, and even that didn't do it. You know, that blew me away. And the fact that Stonewall are still pushing this line shows, I think, and I think the same thing is happening at the BBC at the moment, is that the narcissistic, psychotic wing of these organizations is really taking control. You know, like there's no way, just in pure, as you say, Arty, from a purely public relations point of view, to criticize World Rugby for their decision is mental. It's mental, you know, and I think it will kind of, I think, you know, unfortunately there's still a few people who are caught up in it, like Michael Cashman. You know, Peter Tatchell actually did this hilarious interview where he said women were at a disadvantage to men. You know,
he also, I think we touched on this last week. He also said, you know, because they've got faster twitch muscles, so that means they can score better goals. And you're like, you don't even know what sport you're talking about. You don't even say goals.
Did he say score goals? Oh, that's
yes.
Great. That's great. Well, you know, I like my favorite thing about Tatchell is that he shared that thing years ago about, you know, this tribe who had very healthy gay relationships for kids, for the boys, you know, and he wrote this famous letter that appeared in the I think it was the Standard or something like that, you know, where he was saying, you know, there can be some good things about, he was trying this out, you know. And the thing is, at the time, no one could look up the tribe on Wikipedia because Wikipedia didn't exist. But if you look up the tribe, it is the most bizarre bunch of lunatics, you know, who separate the kid from their mother, you know, who make them drink things, you know. It's just horrific. And because at the time no one could look on Wikipedia, everyone thought, yes, I see, interesting. Maybe these people do have a greater understanding of you know, social roles and so on, you know.
I have seen the letter, but I hadn't seen that earlier reference to the tribe. That is interesting. But that's separating the child from his parents thing. We've seen that before, haven't we?
We certainly have. In fact, it's going on a kind of industrial scale now. You know, the as you say, you know, the one of the scariest parts, one of the most frightening aspects of this whole gender revolution, to bless it with a term it doesn't deserve. It's more like
yes, absolutely.
It's more like bell bottoms, but you know, as I always say, at least bell bottoms didn't make people sterile, but this
it prevented them from having sex, but it didn't make them sterile.
Yes, exactly. But one of the most frightening aspects of it is the thing that is being spread across so many institutions, that children, if they identify as non-binary or trans or whatever it happens to be, they may need to be separated from their parents who won't understand. You know,
that is horrifying.
The government of Canada is doing this. We have a shameful history of separating Indigenous children from their parents for the sake of protecting the children from Indigenous cultures, which were considered bad. They had to be indoctrinated into, you know, Christian white culture. So that's one of the greatest shames of our country. And it's like we're barreling right into it again, because the government of Canada really has this mindset that any child who's gender nonconforming is in danger from their own parents. And the only people that can protect them are the schools, the government through the schools, who are going to implement the Protect All Genders program. And they're targeting these children, and they're giving them special lessons that the parents aren't allowed to see. And they're telling all the guidance counselors, you know, to look out, and they're reporting children, you know, reporting parents of children, and they're trying to take children away. They're trying to put parents in jail. It's crazy. And parents are absolutely petrified.
So frightening. Frightening. Yeah. But you've also got, I mean, I've seen a number, of even sort of prominent trans activists saying, you can DM me, you got any problems, DM
Famously,
me.
Monroe Bergdorf did
Yes.
that. Yes,
yes.
yes.
I can be your big sister, your glitter family. It's it's frightening.
I'm not saying this about Monroe Bergdorf. I think Monroe Bergdorf was probably did that in an innocent way because they were just trying to be cool or whatever. But I think that on a larger level, I think there are people within this movement who are doing exactly the same thing that PIE did. PIE in the 70s. If you don't know about it, Google it. It's quite extraordinary. It was a group called Pedophile Information Exchange, and they very specifically were trying to normalize relationships between adults and children, and they had support, I think, all across the political spectrum. Probably the Conservatives resisted it. I couldn't be too sure about that, but I think the Lib Dems were up for it. The Labour Party was up for it, and it was considered the next big civil rights thing by some of these
people. But it doesn't surprise me, because look at how the Lib Dems and Labour, look how they're up for this. There's just you're not allowed to question nothing. They're just all over it, absolutely all over it.
And Peter Tatchell went to the funeral of one of the founders of PIE.
And he wrote a chapter in a book on pedophilia published by PIE that is so toxic it was banned, and there's only one copy in the British Library that you can't take out of the library, and you need to get special permission to even view.
Wait, Tatchell did? Tatchell wrote that?
He wrote a copy, and he's very lucky that the book is banned because it's burying his own history, right?
Wow.
But I found a copy of it. You can't Google the text to find it, but somebody printed images. And if you were really good at Google image searching, you can find the text. And I transcribed it and I posted it online somewhere. And Peter he freaked the hell out. And he got the lawyer mode and was all like, he didn't sick lawyer, but he was speaking in lawyerese. This was at a time when blah, blah, blah. And I was not aware of who was going to publish the book and all this stuff. It's gross. His particular chapter was, he had been having sex with men when he was underage. And I think he was very much involved in that element of gay activism that was about normalizing adult sexual relations. But I think something I think about all of the time, how easy it is for well-intentioned liberal people who think that they're promoting virtue can get sucked into pedophilia. Have you heard of the school in Germany that instituted fucking hour?
Yeah, I saw there was a documentary.
I'm leaving.
There was something recently.
But these were liberal, progressive people who thought this was the sexual revolution. This was before the term consenting adults had really been.
Yeah, it was back in the 70s, wasn't it? 60s and 70s.
The 70s and late 70s, I think, in Germany. And
that's interesting because that's the same time as PIE,
That's right. Yeah. And the teachers, these were not pedophiles in the sense of these were not people who were sexually attracted to children, but these teachers there would be 1 hour every day in school where they would take these 5 and 6 and 7-year-olds and everyone would get naked and fornicate. And they thought this was progressive. They thought they were teaching children the healthiness of sex, right? And somebody pointed out that these people genuinely thought that they were doing good by the kids. Yeah. But I'll bet the person who invented that program was an actual pedophile,
Yes, I would imagine
and was absolutely enjoying every second of it, and everyone else just went along with it. Yeah.
Yes, and that's the thing. It is the people who just go along with it. And it is, and we know, often to our cost, that it is actually difficult to say, hang on, I'm not going along with this. I don't agree. Because everyone is like, whoa. I mean,
look at what happened. The right-wing press in Germany found out about the school and tried to publish a big scandal. And the left-wing press tried to distance themselves from it. And then they realized the school was sponsored by the major university in Germany. It was actually a highly academic program, Yeah. It had come right out of academia. It had not come from pedophilia. It had come from academia. Yeah,
it's interesting because academia is obviously through Judith Butler and people like that. They are providing a kind of a unintelligible cover, so that people are never sure if they're right in opposing something. So you get drag queen story time, and on the surface it looks, oh, that looks okay. They're kind of dressed as pantomime dames and they're talking to toddlers. I get, and there must be some reason.
And it's a bit of fun and it's nice. And plus, we should be progressive about this. It should be, we should be accepting of everyone. Yes, of course, you can see how it's happened.
Yeah, but it's a contentious issue. I always say this: contentious drag is a contentious issue within gay culture as well. A lot of lesbians don't like drag. It's not
feminist culture and
feminist culture. It's not a settled drag is great thing. It's a certain group within and let's call them the kind of, I don't know, queer theory group within LGBT heritage movements at the moment that's pushing this stuff. And people don't have the language to oppose it, because the language that's promoting it is so unintelligible and so insane. They don't even know how to get to grips with it, And sorry to jump on to another thing, another aspect of it that you see, because we're talking about people going along and kind of drifting into areas where they realize, oh shit, I'm actually I'm a bad person now. I didn't realize it.
Yeah, I'm up to my fucking neck in it. Yeah.
But Saturday Night Live recently, the American comedy show, recently did an anti-JK Rowling thing, and it's like, can you show us what she said that's transphobic, you fucking incurious arseholes? I
didn't see that. What did they do? They did a song, or
they said something like "stick to the books," something like that, as if her kind of moral whatever turpitude, is that the word, is so agreed on, is so kind of certain, that they can start making jokes about it. But it's like no one has explained properly what she's done wrong. No one, you never see the quotes, quotes that are supposed to be transphobic, because they don't exist. It's all about what she feeds into, it's the atmosphere.
By saying biology exists. I keep trying to hammer the point home to outsiders that this is about pretending biology doesn't exist. It's not about protecting vulnerable people. A, they're not vulnerable. B, they're just attacking the concept of biology at large. And there's no better proof than literally the words that came out of J.K. Rowling's mouth were, sex exists and it matters. I'm compassionate for transgender people, but sex exists and it matters. And that's the thing. It's naked in front of everybody. Mother, female, woman. They're just attacking the concept of biology.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And an important point to also make, because now that they've come out against J.K. Rowling, I'm free to say this: Saturday Night Live is shit and has been shit for years. It's shit, and the reason it's shit is because it's live. There's no reason for it to be live. All the actors, you can see them reading their lines. It's a load of bollocks. So
is that like this?
No, it's anyone who comes out against, anyone who does that, anyone who comes out against, there's a comedian over here, I can't remember his name. What's his name? Anyway, I shouldn't say it because I might get it wrong and target the wrong comedian. But he actually, my wife phoned him to try and get him in, to see if he was interested in a project, and he fucking gave her shit instead of talking to me. Too scared to talk to me, because he knows that he's in the wrong, but happy to give a woman shit, which isn't that this discussion in a fucking nutshell,
Yes, sorry. Isn't it?
It really is. It really is.
Did you see that that bunch of students is it Cambridge? Is it Clare College?
Are they the ones who are going after Kevin Price?
Yes.
Yes. What are they doing?
They I mean, to be fair, he's a Labour councillor, I think, isn't he? Or maybe a Lib Dem councillor. And they wanted to have all of the councillors pledge that they believe that trans women are women, non-binary people are valid. And he said, I cannot do this. I feel that I have to resign because I will not take this pledge.
Yes, I did. Yes, he did it live on a Zoom meeting. It was great. I'm so happy
but
he did.
Also, I think he's a porter at one of the colleges.
And they're trying to get him fired.
Trying to get him fired for saying that he's making trans and non-binary people and safe.
This really is the worst generation, isn't it? It's just such a fucking bunch. Can you imagine if the Nazis invaded? What they would do. It would be the easiest takeover.
Yes, but honestly, also like a bunch of students at Cambridge. So a lot of these students are rich public school kids trying to get a reporter fired. I mean, what the fuck?
It's just hilarious.
Look great, does it?
Yeah. Well, it's another example of how this is just an absolute playground for privileged people. There's just
nothing more privileged. This is almost entirely middle class people who are, playing with all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's fiddling while the world burns. I mean, we could be sorting out climate change, but instead you have, if you'll excuse me, Helen, an absolute genius like Helen, who's engaged in fighting for rights that you've taken for granted for 100 years. It's insane that intelligent people have to waste their time indulging these narcissistic bullies.
Yes, idiots and narcissists. Yeah. Yes, you see sometimes, and I do feel this. You see extremely, fiercely intelligent women, on Twitter, and having to defend their position against just you're like, why? If we were blokes, if we were men, it would not be happening. I mean, first of all, we wouldn't feel that we have to defend our position. In fact, we wouldn't have to be defending our position. Men are not defending their position because men are fine.
Exactly.
This is a hostile takeover by men.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, it doesn't touch men at all. If a trans man comes into a men's toilet, it's the trans man who's probably in danger.
Yes, I saw. Just as a little aside, I saw the most ridiculous video that I was just on some other thread, and as an aside, I saw this trans bloke do a video saying, I'm going to go into the men's toilets. And he's, and this trans person or this trans man is videoing themselves going into a completely empty, really quite horrible men's toilet. And you're like, what point is this trying to make? I mean, in all honesty, you're going to an empty room, which is filthy. Maybe that you're prepared to go where there's piss on the floor, where you wouldn't in the women's.
Yeah.
It was just ridiculous. There was no men in there. And if there had been men in there, it's not an equal problem. That is the problem.
Yeah. It's why so many men. It's just so invisible to men. It's extraordinary. And I still speak to people who have no idea it's going on. Like men who just simply they just don't know. It's extraordinary.
I did see a tweet. Somebody replied saying, "Oh well, no, now it's become mainstream now. J.K. Rowling, this will be over soon. J.K. Rowling has raised awareness. It'll be over before you know it." And people women like we've been here for 10 years doing this. First of all, this J.K. Rowling's awareness was raised because we've all been fighting it. She's been following people for a while before she raised awareness of it to the wider public. But where do you think it's come from? It's grassroots fighting. Fair Play for Women, got together. Was it 4 years ago or so? And this just complacency, it's become mainstream. How do you think that this has happened? It's happened because women have had to spend their hours and days and years slowly slogging away, raising awareness.
Yeah.
And I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go on, Arty.
Oh, I was just gonna say. I'm curious. Somebody asked in the comments earlier. Why do you directed at me? Why do I think there are so few people in Canada paying attention to the LGBT Alliance Canadian branch on Facebook? And I think the answer, perhaps, is that there's not enough mainstream media attention in Canada being paid to this issue. The Canadian press just will not touch this at all. Just the way The Guardian won't touch it in the UK. Yeah. Imagine The Guardian was the only newspaper in the country. It's just they will not touch it. So Canadians are just deeply unaware of what's going on. And I want to contrast that with Sweden, because there's actually some really good news, I think, this week. Extraordinary news, in fact, which is that, Sweden has been really, really discussing this issue at length.
Discussing or disgusting? Oh, discussing. Yes, sorry.
Yeah, people are becoming very concerned about the phenomenon of rapid onset gender distress among adolescents and the massive numbers of referrals of young people for sex changes. And I like calling them sex changes because it's got that punch of reality. So there was a documentary which ended up happening called The Trans Train, which ended up landing a sequel, The Trans Train 2. And then just last week, they aired The Trans Train Part 3. And they revealed that since the first two aired, and there was also like a big public airing, like it was like, I think it was like a week long, like round table thing that was live on television for a week. Yeah. They're really talking about this issue in Sweden, something like that. But the latest episode, the latest edition of this hour-long serious documentary called The Trans Train said, since the first two aired, the number of referrals for adolescents to gender clinics has almost instantly plummeted by 2/3.
Wow, that's great. That's amazing.
Like a complete collapse.
Astonishing.
That, because the mainstream media suddenly took note. And when you hear the mainstream media formally announcing that it's okay to talk about this and that there's a problem, then people feel they're allowed to look with their eyes open and with their guard down. And once they do, they're like, "Oh my God!"
That's why one thing I really want to do, and this maybe I'm going to ask here, and I'm going to ask in other places. If anyone out there is watching this, and you work for the BBC, or you work for the Guardian, or you work for any of these places that are pushing gender identity ideology,
or the Toronto Star, or the Globe and Mail in Canada, or the CBC. Oh God, the CBC.
or God, Bite Size. If anyone's in there, please get in touch, and I can promise you anonymity. And I'll put, if you want to write something about the situation, I'll put it in my blog, because Julie Bindel said recently that the problem with the BBC is that there's some kind of LGBT group in there that is mostly trans people. And they are ramming this stuff down everyone's throats in the BBC. And as a result, the BBC are ramming things like pronoun day down everyone else's throats.
Well, didn't they say that 2% of all people who work for the BBC are trans or something like that?
It's something like that. But then again, what does that mean? Black fingernails usually,
Right.
I mean, black fingernail polish. Then I've seen that, guys.
Yeah.
It's
just like non-binary.
Yeah.
I mean, there is absolutely no question in my mind that if I was a teenager now, I would identify as non-binary, because I did then. I went through a massive phase of only wearing my brother's cast-off clothes. I really, really hated anything that was anything to do with femininity or skirts or anything like that. And I was always like trying to be sort of cool, just sort of playing with the boys, whatever, always a tomboy. There's no question that I'd be non-binary. Yeah. No question in my mind.
But also the entry point is so, what is the entry point? It's for Sam Smith, for instance, it seems to be just saying it.
Yes.
He just said
did you see what he said today? I want to be a mummy.
Oh, he's so gross.
And it's just,
God.
I want to have kids. I want to have kids. Well, fine. You want to have kids. That's fine. Loads of people want to have kids. This is something good to talk about. Talk about it. But then to say, because I want to be a mummy, it's just.
Doesn't he know how offensive and horrible that is? How I think sometimes it's a troll. I think people like Sam Smith are trolling the public. He's just.
I think he must be. Yeah. I mean, he must be. I mean, honestly, for his sake, I really hope he is.
My favorite thing is, did you see my recreation of his non-binary topless pic? I hope everyone saw it. It was.
Oh no! What, you did it?
Yes. Did you not see it? Oh yeah. I'll send you the picture. It's quite something. But basically, I mean, I've often thought this, and I have actually once come out. It was in that when I posted that picture, I kind of revealed that I'm non-binary, because I'm exactly the same as Sam Smith in terms of his physicality. He's a little bit thinner because he has to be, because he's a pop star. But I realize that I am non-binary, and for some reason that hasn't hit the news in the same way that Sam Smith's announcement has. I will continue to use he, him pronouns. Because I just don't want to.
Because and it's better as well, isn't it? In society, you get more advantage from it. So
yes, exactly.
Why wouldn't you?
Exactly. But I am non-binary, because the entry level for being non-binary seems to be nothing.
Yes, it is nothing. It is
except that you say it. Except that you say it. Yes,
Yep.
yes. He's not too bright. No, he's not. He's anyway. Let's move off because I don't. I do think he's troubled. You know, like sometimes famous people like poor old Madonna, who looks like one of those.
No, I think that's true. I think it must be very difficult. Like he was also saying that, you know, he'd like to find a partner first, but he finds it very difficult. And I honestly, I imagine if you're really famous, it must be very difficult to find a partner because people only want you for you. I always felt this about poor old Kylie. You know, she's beautiful. She was obviously very smart, very amusing, like so successful. But it must be so difficult for her to find a partner because
everyone, that's
everyone,
all of her friends are gay.
Well, that's true. That's true. The only men she knows are those carrying her into a room on a platter. What time? How are we doing for time? No, we're doing okay. Let's go for another.
We're doing okay. I've got a meeting at 4.
Okay, I've got
my lunchtime again.
Yeah.
I almost missed this whole thing because you guys, you did your fallback timey-wimey thing.
Oh,
and
that's
we didn't.
true.
Yeah.
So we're like out of time sync. It's a whole Doctor Who episode going on.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that it's not a worldwide change.
Not the same time. Like,
so how many hours between us now?
I don't know which way.
You're behind us. What time is it there with
4.
you?
Now? It's 11:46. 4 hours and not 5. So I
would
have missed it. But
every time we say hello, we should say we come from the future. You know, we should wear like all silver bodysuits to talk to Arty.
Great.
Arty,
is that also a picture you're going to send me?
Who's the president? Where you are?
Oh yeah, that's right. Sam Smith
Yeah.
hangs out with Alok. And you really need to watch Magdalene Burns' video on Alok. It's very interesting. Very interesting. Another guy who is sneaking in a little bit of, you know, he said something like, little girls are just as what was the word he used? Kinky. Are just as kinky as it's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
I saw something about that. Yes.
Yeah, he wrote a long Facebook post. Now Sam Smith is hanging around with him. You know, it's these people because Alok wears purple lipstick. Sam Smith thinks he's onto something. Sam Smith thinks.
Well, actually, there's somebody in the comments saying he's becoming irrelevant, so it's all for attention. This is possibly true because, you know, it's lockdown. It's difficult, you know, pop stars aren't, you know, they can't tour, they can't, so, you know, what can we do? I know we can come out as non-binary and make a fuss and cry and things. So yeah.
The only thing I couldn't do is I couldn't find curtains to put over my face because and that might mean I'm not non-binary. I better look into that.
But double check. Yeah, but double check.
I'll double check. Yeah.
Because I don't want to misgender you or anything.
No, you're okay. You're okay. I'll let it go. I mean, you know, when I love the fact that everybody who writes about Sam Smith, they always slip up and call him he, even when they're supporting him. It's the funniest thing. You know, all you have to do is get into a conversation that goes over 3 sentences, and they'll slip up and call him he.
Yeah,
you know?
yes. There's been some glaringly good examples of that, haven't there? It's true. You know, any time, which is why it doesn't work, does it? You know, announcing your pronouns. It is, as you were saying, I was thinking about it again, that sort of green written in red ink. It is just, it's too hard. It's too hard to process. You will get it wrong.
Yeah. It's, well, you know.
You know what the truth is.
Again, the essay that everyone should read on this is Pronouns Are Rohypnol, which is a brilliant essay about the destabilizing effect of having to deny your senses and say stuff that's not true. You know, it creates in you an uncertainty. As I say, it destabilizes you. So it's easier to get you to do things, you know, to do bad things. Today we've been talking about Germany and the way pedophilia crept in. Those fucking stories, I'm still trying to absorb them. But you know, it
is quite shocking.
But that is the effect that gender ideology, queer theory, and
but there's
pronouns.
Also, I'm sorry, just thinking about this whole attention thing. I wanted to say it. I see that Jessica Yanev is back in the news now, trying to take the beauty pageant to court, to an industrial tribunal. And again, for $10,000, Jessica Yanev is trying for. And again, it's just litigious, isn't it? It's targeting, and the beauty pageant is also run by a woman, I think, also from a racial minority, just like the beauty parlor people, women he targeted.
Yes, who he's also suing again.
Yeah.
Really?
You know that? Yeah, he's suing them in civil court. Can you believe that?
But it's attention seeking and just money making, isn't it?
So these poor women who've already been who've lost their businesses, or they've been the stress of this, which I know myself because I've been targeted by someone like that, it's still going on. He's doing it again. It just blows me away. And this was one of the ones I brought up with John Ronson. I said to him, Jessica Yanev, I mentioned him, and his response was one of the few questions he did answer because he felt he was on safe ground. He said, "Oh yes, well that's a you get no argument from me. Jessica Yanev is obviously a terrible person, but they've been taken care of, haven't they? That's over, And no, it hasn't. And I brought it up again, and I said, well, look, he's back and he's doing it again. And this is not because of Jessica Yanev. This is because of Canada's self-ID laws.
So what it might have been taken care of in one case because they lost in court, but it doesn't mean that the whole situation has been taken care of by any means, does it? No. It's symptomatic of the whole situation, and it's the whole situation you're talking about, not particularly an individual. You can't just
John won't answer questions on that. He'll answer questions when he feels everything's safe, but he won't answer questions when you move it onto a general thing. And the thing is, the general thing is the problem. Gender self-ID is a massive problem. As we all know, just look at Limerick prison, Limerick women's prison. Look at Yanev, and look at many cases in the UK where self-ID is kind of the unofficial law of the land.
Well, yes, that's the point. It's that Stonewall have done and gendered intelligence and all these groups, they've done a really good job, an insidious job of sneaking self-ID in. Anyway, but didn't I see a clip of Biden saying that? That and he got all mixed up with sort of sexual identity and that they should all get a gynecologist, and then somebody stopped him at that point, and he was like, whatever. But basically, saying, it was insane. It was insane. I thought I wanted nobody to ask him that question because he's still better than Trump. But the truth of it is, he was basically saying, yes, it's your identity, not what the prison says you are. It's what you say you are. And you're like, can you not see a problem with this?
Well, I tell you what, you will by the end of this week, because the Kate Coleman interview and the judicial review that's coming up is going to be explosive. It really is. It's sorry, not my interview. Only about a few thousand people will see that. But the judicial review
anyway.
The judicial review is going to be big because it is an extraordinary story. It's an extraordinary story, and but. Of course, sorry, just talking about Biden, I don't want to move on to a completely new subject just yet. Oh, no, I better not, actually, because I got to go. I've got to do a thing. Biden got confused with whom he was running against. Yeah, I would say he's still better than Trump.
Yes.
Trump
Everyone is better than Trump. There's no question.
A Vaz would be a better president than Trump.
An amphora.
Yeah. So I don't know, and I'm hoping and praying that the coalition between the woke lunatics and mainstream Democrats is just for to get elected, because if they try and get some of these things passed, they're gonna get
Yeah, I think I would hope so. Anyway, I would hope so.
That's totally crazy. Yeah. There's just one thing I want to add about self-ID. I thought of I'm always trying to find ways to reach out to people on the other side, so to speak. And one of them is I'm willing to concede for some genuine sympathetic transsexuals that I wouldn't call them men, right? I'm not going to say that they are fully women, but I would say, if you've completely transitioned and you don't look particularly male and you don't seem to have anything in common with the average man anymore, I'm willing to concede you're male, but you're not a man. I'm not going to call you a man.
Yes, I wouldn't. It wouldn't come up. I would always,
trans women. I'm okay with that. I'm absolutely fine with them being trans women.
That is a place where we and the other side, so to speak, are in common. And that is a big wedge with self-ID. Because if you believe trans women are not men, self-ID is saying that all men are trans women whenever they want. And if you think trans women are not men and men are not trans women, then you don't believe in self-ID. Because self-ID is all about saying men are trans women whenever they say so.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So I think that's a good way to frame it. A very good, if you're ever in an argument with someone, start with self-ID and say, we both agree. You can't I can't declare that I'm a trans woman. I'm not a vulnerable person like a genuine trans woman is. If there's a difference between me and a trans woman you care about at all, then self-ID is not for you. Yeah.
Perfectly put. I think that's a brilliant way to end it. So let's do that.
Yes, I think so too.
Absolutely wonderful to talk to you as always. I wish we could do this every day, to be honest.
Oh, guys, yes. Well, if we were doing it every day, I'd want something. I'd want wine. I want wine.
Yeah.
I want wine. I want wine. I'm going to go back to work, but I want wine.
Me too. I'll see you soon, everybody. Thanks for.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
I love that we do.